The Ryan Ries Show from Southern California. This is The Ryan Ries Show. Post your questions using @RyanRies on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Are you ready?
All right, well, this show, you guys are going to hear this voice and know who it is. It's Hagen Miller. He's the Calvary Chapel, Salmon, Idaho pastor. One of the youngest senior pastors I've ever met in my life. Actually, but also in the Calvary Chapel movement. You became a pastor at 21 years old.
Yeah. And
today's story, I want to talk about how this happened because it was wild, the whole process.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. Mm-hmm. I'm personally excited to hear this story of how, because I hear about people taking over churches and older ages or starting, and it's just, there's so much work, and it's a big church up there that you guys have multiple services. Mm-hmm. And being 21, you don't know nothing when you're 21. Sure, yeah. You know, and a lot of you guys that have heard him on the show before, he had an amazing radical show because he grew up Mormon and converted to Christianity. And I did a whole nother show, and you need to look this up on my YouTube channel. Just look up Ryan Ries on the YouTube channel or go to ryan-ries.com, and all the past shows are there. Hagen Miller. And we talk about the doctrine of Mormonism versus Christianity, and literally you will blow your mind. That was probably one of the most exciting shows I've done. I've been waiting years to do that show. But check it out, look it up. And today we're going to talk about, this is like the second show from that show. So for those listeners that might not have heard the first one, just give them a little background on you growing up, Mormonism, and where you grew up.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Salmon, Idaho, which is where I get to pastor. Multi-generational.
There's about 400,000 people there?
Yeah, about 3,000 people. Yep. Yeah. Pretty small town. We're 2.5 hours away from a Walmart or a McDonald's. We're super isolated. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I remember going up there and I'm like, hey, is there a Starbucks around here? Yeah. They're about 2 hours.
Yeah. Yes.
So growing up in that environment.
Yep. Raised on a ranch, super great childhood, super blessed, solid family, never saw my parents fight, raised with good morals, being raised Mormon. I've still never tasted alcohol. I've never done drugs, like all of that I've been spared from. And that just has to do with my upbringing. So I'm super grateful for all of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
And yeah, born and raised in Mormonism and never questioned it, not once throughout my whole life of being raised in it until I become 16 years old. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I become friends with this kid named Taylor, and he goes to Calvary Chapel Salmon. And they have youth group on Thursday night. So he decides that he's going to invite me, his new friend, to youth group at Calvary Chapel. And he asked me to go, and I really wasn't interested. Why would I want to go to another church? I belong to the true church. There's zero desire in me to want to check out other religions. But this kid is my friend, and maybe it'd be fun, but I wasn't even sure if my parents would let me do it. So he invites me a few times at school before Thursday. It's like, I don't know, I'll ask my parents tonight and see if they'll let me go.
Does he know you're a Mormon?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. So it's Thursday night, maybe like a half hour before youth group starts. I'm like, hey, Mom and Dad, my new friend invited me to this youth group thing at his church. Can I go? And I'm expecting them to be like, no, we don't really want you doing that. But they're like, sure. So I'm like, okay. So they drop me off, and I walk through the doors of our old sanctuary, and that is where my life would change forever. I have no clue what's getting ready to happen, but it's just so bizarre.
What?
Yep.
That's crazy that your parents said yes.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why would they?
Yeah. I guess they figured we got nothing to lose.
We're the true church. Who cares?
Yeah, let's just let him go and check this thing out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
I walk into youth group at Calvary Chapel for the first time, maybe only 5 or 7 kids, not real big at the time. Just a few highlights that I remember. I remember sitting in a circle and them singing to Jesus with a guitar. And I thought, that's pretty cool, because all of my context of worship has been either an organ or a piano and hymns. But now they're singing contemporary songs to Jesus on a guitar. Like that felt good to me. It's like, this is how we should worship God.
Really?
It shouldn't be all official. It should be chill.
So it's more official in the church?
In Mormonism, yep. Yeah, it's very, you wear a tie and women wear dresses and very put together.
Okay.
Where now I'm getting this casual approach to Jesus that is just like making sense to me, like right out of the gate. And this is Ty Orr of Water Springs Church, he's the senior pastor as well as doing the youth group. So that's who I got saved under. He teaches a lesson from the Bible. I couldn't even tell you where, but all I remember is how much I could tell from him talking about this book that he believed in this book. There's like an authority, a power that as he's simply teaching the Bible simply, that I'm like, whoa, this is different than what I'm used to as well. So the casual approach to Jesus, their big view of God, and their big, powerful view of the Bible were the three main things that attracted me to it right away. So I go, okay. And he challenges everyone to just start reading the Bible. And he goes, just start in the Gospel of John. It's like, well, I've packed a Bible with me every Sunday of my life in Mormonism, and I've never like read a whole book of the Bible. So it's like, I'll just start reading the Gospel of John. Like, this will be cool. So I start reading the Gospel of John, and I get saved.
No way.
I'm just reading this, and it's speaking to me in a way that I've never experienced before. And I'm thinking, I can't believe I've been packing this book around with me for 16 years, and I've never had this relationship with it like I'm having now. Like literally, God is speaking to me when I read these words. And so this thing's happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is great. So the next week comes along.
So your parents let you go back?
Yeah, and I'm like, well, can I go back to youth group? And they're like, sure, but my dad goes, but can I go with you? Because he's like, well, now I got to see what's going on here. So he goes with me to youth group for like a few months, actually.
Yeah, so you're like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, and he's just kind of in the corner just watching. And honestly, he quit going because I asked him to stop, because it's not cool to have your dad go to youth group with you.
But at the end of the day, it was just Bible teaching.
Yeah.
And he agrees with like the Bible teaching.
Sure, yeah. But that was cool because he cares about me enough that he's like, oh, Hagen's into this. Yeah. And I just want to see what's going on. Yeah. So he was willing to come and just observe and just make sure, like, what's this all about? So all that kind of happens. But
so interesting.
I get saved.
So wait, hold on. I want to jump in this really quick with your parents. So they're going, they see, and they're like, there's nothing wrong. Like, they're just teaching the Bible and singing some songs.
Sure, yeah. Different than what we would do, but it all seems chill.
But there's nothing weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get saved. I've read the Gospel of John. I'm having this new, fresh relationship with Jesus. And it takes like almost 4 to 6 months in that for me to actually kind of walk away from Mormonism. So I was saved for a while until I realized this experience that I'm having with Jesus over here at Calvary Chapel through the Bible is not going to fit with what I believe is the true church. So it wasn't like I get saved, Mormonism is wrong. It's I get saved, and somehow this needs to fit with this, because my whole life I've been told that this is the true church.
Right.
So whatever experience I'm having here at this little church must have to fit here. But it took quite a while for me to realize, oh, these pieces are not going to fit together. And I started researching things about Mormon history, and my world over here begins to collapse. But praise God, I had this elementary relationship with the true Jesus that didn't collapse at all as this came down, and I just went full in with this.
Tell me more about the collapsing and the rising. Speak in more detail for people that are listening.
Yeah, so I start researching things online. I come across these YouTube videos like The Truth About Joseph Smith. I learn a bunch of stuff about Mormon history that I've never heard before. I dig into it. I read all these articles, and I start to realize the system that I was raised in of Mormonism is not what it was cracked up to be. It's not what I was sold, if you will.
You were saying on another show that there's a lot of stuff that are online that are in the Mormon library. You were saying, explain that so people could look that up.
For sure. So like I think it's just like LDS.org. But a lot of people, when you challenge Mormonism, they're real quick to just say, well, that's just anti-Mormon literature. You just need to stay away from it. But it's like, I'm learning stuff about Mormon history from Mormon sources.
Right.
So it's not some disgruntled guy that's just writing negative things about Joseph Smith. It's the church he established that just has the accurate history of him that's out there. It's not in your face, but it's out there if you look for it. It's more in your face now. And I'm learning all these interesting things. So I remember one night specifically, I'm in my bed, I'm on my iPod Touch, and I'm scrolling through reading all these articles about Brigham Young, the second prophet of Mormonism. And I remember feeling so betrayed, because it's like, the thoughts I'm struggling with is, do my parents know about all this? Do my church leaders know about all this extra stuff that I've never heard of once at Sunday? Like, do they know and are they hiding it? Or am I the only one that's learning these things? My grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all of the people that are valuable in my life that have been selling the system to me, either they know all this other stuff and they're hiding it from me, or they're in the dark too. I don't know which it is, but I just felt betrayed. I felt more alone in that moment than ever. And I remember literally saying with my mouth, I don't think the Mormon church is true. And that was revolutionary.
Wow.
That for their whole life, it's drilled into your head, this is true, this is true, this is true. And then to finally verbalize, maybe the church isn't true. It's almost like I was set free from Mormonism, and now I just have this relationship with Jesus to go in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you at that time?
16.
16?
Yep.
16. Okay, so what happened from that point?
So I go, okay.
I mean, you're a kid, basically, 16 years old.
Yeah. So I got all this information. I've come to this realization that Mormonism isn't the case, but whatever I'm experiencing with Jesus through the Bible, this is legit. This is real. I cannot deny this. So I start so from 16 to 18, I'm still going to the Mormon church every Sunday with my parents. I'm going to youth group at Calvary Chapel Thursday nights. Then my senior year of high school, I'm going on Wednesday nights too to midweek. But all this time of me now doubting Mormonism, I'm going to church on Sunday mornings to honor my parents.
Yeah.
But I start asking questions. And it becomes very clear pretty quickly. And people know Hagen's now going to this new church. With my parents and the leaders and my other peers. Yeah, like in Sunday school and stuff. Hey, have you ever heard this about Joseph Smith? Or did you ever know the church used to teach this and now it doesn't anymore? Things like that. And people, like, it became very obvious that, Hagen's going through something. He's figuring things out here. So, man, this story gets really good as it develops. So all this happens.
It's already insane.
I start learning guitar now that I'm saved because I want to be able to worship Jesus with a guitar.
Yeah.
So I start learning guitar. I play on the youth group worship team. So right away after getting saved, I start serving the Lord.
Okay.
I'm interested in just going all in. Yeah. So I learn guitar. I start to play in the worship team. I'm just available to serve in any way. Probably like my senior year of high school, our youth guy couldn't make it one Thursday, so he asked me if I'd fill in. So I was able to teach a little Bible study. And if I could sum up my life, there's this clever saying, God's not looking for ability, he's looking for availability. Yeah. That's my life. Yeah. I've shown up and made myself available, and God's been faithful to open up door after door after door to get me to where I'm at today. And from just, hey, I can't make it. Can you teach? Sure. Hey, could you step in here? Hey, could you do announcements? Hey, could you? And now, we'll get there, before I know it, I'm getting handed the keys to a church at 21 years old. Okay,
yes, we're going to get there, but we're going to hold on a second. So you give your life to Christ. Yeah. And I do like that saying that you were saying. I've heard that before. Mm-hmm. Just being available. Yeah. And then God just opens the doors. Story of my life too. Just like, what's up? I'm down. Yeah. Speak to one person. Sure. 10 people. Okay. Whatever, wherever. And then God just continues to build. Faithful in the small things, he'll make you greater in the bigger things. Yep. He just opens the doors. Okay. Let's circle back to your parents now.
Yes.
Because you're 16 years old. This is a huge thing if you walk away from the Mormon church.
Sure.
I mean, I've heard about people disowning their family, they act weird. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that could happen. What could happen to a Mormon if they leave the faith?
Sure.
To start, and then let's talk about what happened with you and your family.
Yeah. I've heard of stories of people being maybe shunned. You could use a word like that, or ostracized.
Yes.
But that's not my experience at all.
Cool.
Definitely, they weren't happy with it. Definitely, they don't understand. Even today, they still don't understand it.
They're Mormon still?
Yeah. I'm the only Christian in my family. Yep. But they've come to grips with it. So not happy, don't like it, but comes to grips with it. And the neat thing about Salmon, because it's a small town, you've been there, our church is on Main Street, we've started a school. What God is doing through Calvary Chapel Salmon is obvious to our community, and it's hard even for Mormons to deny that. So even though, because they know me, They know I'm nothing special.
Yeah.
They know I'm not this great, well thought out leader.
Yeah.
And yet somehow Hagen becomes a pastor and all this stuff starts happening. There's got to be more to this than just him.
More. Yeah, the testimony.
So that testimony even speaks into the lives of my old church people, my old Mormon friends and family, and they speak well of me, which is nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so then your parents,
Mm-hmm.
what was their...
Yeah, at first they're just thinking, he's got this new friend, he just wants to fit in, he's 16, he's rebelling.
Yeah.
He's
the
trying
rebellion.
to find himself by discovering this new religion. And I think they believed that pretty much until the time I actually became the pastor. And then it's like, maybe this isn't a phase. Yeah, maybe there's more going on here. So yeah.
So did they ever come to you and say, "Hey, Hagen, listen, this is the old gospel. We have the new gospel." With Joseph Smith. They tried to like kind of put.
We would definitely have conversations early on, about it.
What would they say about
and them
Joseph
trying
Smith? And when you were telling them about what your findings of the church.
Yeah. So one of the hardest thing when you're dealing with LDS people is at the end of the day, no matter what issue you bring to them through their history or their doctrine, they come back to an experience. I read the Book of Mormon. I prayed and asked God if it's true. I felt, in their words, is a burning in my bosom. So that's all I'm holding on to. Regardless of whatever wacky thing you can show me, this experience of God telling me this book is true means that somehow all of this stuff needs to be okay, even if I don't understand it.
That's the testimony, what they talk about their testimony,
Yep.
right? Like, this is my testimony.
Yep.
I read it. I had the encounter. That's like what a Christian would say is like,
Right.
whatever that moment is in a hotel room or, at your house
Yeah.
or at church reading the Bible, whatever
Sure.
it is, you have that moment, you're like, this is true. And that's what they call their testimony.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Because that's also good verbiage to know because the Mormons will have their testimony just as you will have yours.
Absolutely.
So if you testify yours, they're like, yeah, I had one too.
Sure.
There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Okay, so then so that's 16. So then what happens from 16 to 21?
Yep. So growing up,
window.
finished high school, serious about Jesus, listening to teachings online, figuring out, listening to these other Calvary guys, really just learning, reading the Bible,
What Calvary
studying.
guys you listening to back then?
John Corson,
Yep.
Chuck Smith,
Yep.
Chuck Missler.
Oh, yeah.
Those are like my three,
Yeah.
even today that
Heck yeah.
influenced me the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I go through high school. This is great. And then senior year of high school, almost graduated, Calvary Chapel decides to do this thing called Youth Sunday. So we're going to let the kids do worship, teach a message, and kind of just run the service. So I'm going to youth group at Calvary, but I've never been to church on a Sunday morning because I'm still going to the Mormon church.
Right.
But we're going to have Youth Sunday at Calvary. So during youth group, we're planning this Youth Sunday, and the pastor asked me, he goes, "Well, Hagen, I think you should teach." And I go, "Well, I don't really think I should teach." He goes, "Well, that's why I think you should." It's like,
Is this Ty?
yeah, Ty. And I go, "Well, I don't even think my parents will let me not go to the Mormon church on a Sunday and come over here and teach. But I guess I'll ask him." So I go home and I ask him, I go, "Hey, we're doing this Youth Sunday at Calvary Chapel. The pastor asked if I could share, could I not go to the Mormon church this one Sunday and go there?" And they said yes, which is just insane.
It is insane.
It's insane for me, but it's also insane for Ty. And I'll talk more about this later, but the fact that he saw what God was doing in my life enough to trust a young man who's never even sat through a Sunday service in his church.
That's right. You've never
just
even
been
been
there
there
on Thursday nights, that I'm going to let him get behind my pulpit and share. That's huge. But the most
Massive.
valuable thing that Ty ever gave me was opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's huge for the next generation.
Yep.
Opportunity.
Yep.
God is using you. God's given you giftings. My job is to give you space to use that.
Yep.
And he did that so well with me, and I try to be intentional with that for the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, we could talk about that. That could be a whole nother show.
Yeah.
But I agree. Just on my story, I was not anything special. I was not good at speaking. I still stink at speaking. But there was men like Chuck Smith, Brian Broderson, my father, and then even other guys like David Rosales opened the door, Garrett Beeler, Poncho. There's all these guys that opened the door for me when I first got saved to share my story. And then that turned in and evolved into what happened. But it was opportunity.
Yeah.
They knew that I got saved, and God was doing something. They knew they knew that there was a radical conversion.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a pastor. I wasn't an evangelist. I didn't do anything back then. They just knew that I was caught up in the darkness, so dark, and then boom, God invaded me, and there was this radical transformation, like what they saw in the hippie movement days.
Yeah.
And they were like, you need to testify. And then that opportunity turned in, and I'm 100% with you. I'm always looking for the next younger generations. All the Whosoever's ambassadors, they were all young. Most of them were like all the next generation guys.
Yeah.
Young guys that I've taken on tour, and I've just put them in. I'm like, you're in. They're like, what? I'm like, you're in.
Yeah.
And dude, and now they're speaking globally all over the world. Opportunity, the best thing.
Yeah, I'm going to be gone on a Sunday. Our 20-year-old youth pastor is going to fill in for me on Sunday mornings. I was gone on a Wednesday 3 weeks ago. 17-year-old kid from our youth group teaching on a Wednesday night to our church.
Dude, love
Let him do it. Yeah.
I want to see those links. Send me those links later. I want to watch those studies.
Cool.
That's what I'm talking about. I love it. Okay. So opportunity, Ty,
Yes.
thank you very much for doing this.
Absolutely.
So what happened on the Sunday?
Right. So I get to go, I teach about Peter denying Jesus and grace, because grace is a big deal in my life, getting saved out of a works-based religion. I do this little 10, 15-minute study on it. I get really good feedback. And from that day, more than one person in that church, which is now the church that I get to pastor, saw a calling of God on my life and spoke into it. And that's huge as well, I believe, with the next generation. When we see God's gifting in people's lives, we need to be talking about it. We need to identify it. We need to, like Paul says, stir up the gifts that are in you. So when I see someone that appears to have a gifting, part of my job as older to younger is to just call that out, point it out to them. Because that was huge for me early on. Okay, Hagen has a gift of sharing the word. We can see a pastoral calling on his life, even though he's only 18 years old. And that plays into me trusting Jesus later on when opportunity is given to me. So I'm pretty sensitive to that with other people as well.
Dude, okay. So from there, what was the next steps in this process? But I agree with you. Also, you have to let people know, because a lot of people can't see what God's doing in them.
Sure.
Most of them can't.
Yeah.
Most of them. And then you can identify, and they're like, oh,
yeah.
No one. Okay. Well, yeah, I felt like this is kind of where God was leading me, but they see it. He sees it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is what Jesus does. Yeah. You're Peter or you're Simon sifting sand. I'm going to call you Peter, rock solid. And you're not rock solid at all right now, but one day you're going to be. Your name's Abram. I'm going to call you Abraham. God has eyes to see us for who he wants us to be. And I pray that for me a lot. Lord, help me see people like you see them. Yeah. Help me see the gifts that you've put in them so that I can call them what you call them, so that I can speak into what,
That's epic. Yeah. I love that. Okay.
So I do this thing, and here's where it gets real good. So, and we didn't quite get into this in the previous episode. So in Mormonism, the bishop doesn't preach like a pastor. The people teach. So it'd be like, next Sunday, the Miller family's going to share. And my dad and my mom and me and my sister would all get to share during the Sunday service. And they assign a topic, like an elementary topic, like we're going to talk about faith, or we're going to talk about charity, or we're going to talk about giving, or we're going to talk about sacrifice. And we prepare these little talks, and then we get up and we share them. So,
each person?
Yep, the people teach the people in Mormonism. The bishop does not preach like a pastor. All growing up, I hated public speaking, so I never would speak in Mormonism when they would ask my family. I'd always say no. My bishop finds out that I say yes to speaking at Calvary Chapel. So I go to the Mormon church the next Sunday after this Youth Sunday thing. He calls me into his office and he goes, Hagen, I hear you shared last week at Calvary Chapel. I go, yeah. He goes, well, would you share here? And I said, yes, if I can pick the topic. And he said, deal.
No way.
Yeah.
What the heck?
So then the next week, this was the most awkwardest thing I've ever done, but it was the most like where the rubber meets the road. Yeah. Like now's my chance to make very clear what I believe is true. I stand up in front of the Mormon congregation and I teach the exact same message that I taught at Calvary Chapel. And it's such a different kind of teaching. Like it's so out of context for them. And I get up, I give the exact same message and I sit down and it's you could hear a pin drop.
No.
I do this whole thing about how it's not about the law, it's about love, it's not about a religion, it's about relationship. That's how I kind of end it. I sit down because you're like sitting up on the stage. Then the poor guy after me has to get up and give his little talk. It's like, I feel sorry for him. I get zero feedback from that, but one old Mormon guy calls my home phone that night and says, I really liked how much you talked about the Bible today.
No.
And I go, well, thank you. That's the only feedback I got.
That's what he said?
That's the craziest thing. Wow. So, graduate high school.
That was it. No one said anything.
Yeah.
Heavy.
And everyone knows he's been going to this other church. He's kind of doubting Mormonism. Yeah. What's he going to say?
Yeah. So everyone's already queued up.
And I wasn't disrespectful. I was just blunt and very biblical,
Yeah. Dude,
so that's wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I wish there was a recording of that, but there isn't. Yeah.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So now, how old are you at this point?
So now I'm 18.
Okay.
Just finished up high school. What am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
I know that God has a call on my life. I don't know what that means still quite yet, but I know God's using me as I'm trusting him. I know that I love ministry. Ever since I got saved, I've been fascinated with church outside of Sundays. So after school, I'd swing by the church and just hang out with Ty. Like, what do you do here during the week? What's ministry look like? How do you study the Bible? What tools do you use? So curiosity right away from getting saved, of just asking questions, being around, being available. So that's proof of my calling in my life, because not everyone has that.
No.
So the fact that that's in me is like, that's Jesus in me saying, hey, there's a reason why I've given you these desires.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to serve Jesus. I want to minister to him. I don't know what that looks like. I guess I'll go to college because that's kind of the next step. So me and my best friend Taylor, who invited me to youth group originally, we apply to Idaho State University in Pocatello. We get accepted. We go off to college. I only go for a year and then I drop out. But my goal is to pursue a career in finance. I grew up a poor rancher's kid. I just want to make 6 figures a year. That's my
question about
force.
Rancher kids. So you grew up on a ranch, so you had like livestock and
cows.
Yeah,
and then we had goats, like 500 head of goats for
500 goats
a year. Yeah.
How many cows?
Maybe like 200.
Yeah. So and that's what do you guys do with do you guys make does it turn into steak, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, you sell them to the meat market.
That's it. So and then you have they have babies, then you raise those.
You raise them up the next year and you sell them, and you just keep
continue like of 200 basically.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then the goats, what do you do with the goats?
Ship them to your homeland of California.
Your homeland. What do they do with them?
They
tacos?
Eat them down there, yeah.
They eat them down there. Okay, so dude, that's amazing. So you were like, okay, I want to make 6 figures. I want to get educated.
Yeah. So that just seems like the next step. But before that Sunday before going off to college, my last Sunday at home, Calvary Chapel Salmon's doing this outreach event at the river, bringing in some bands, doing baptisms. I've been saved for 2 years now. I'm going to get baptized before I go off to college, I decide. My buddy Taylor's going to get baptized. We're going to do this thing. My mistake is I don't tell my parents I'm getting baptized, which I probably should have, but I just know it's going to create drama. So that morning I'm leaving. They're going to their church. I'm going to mine right before I decide to go off to college that next week. And I tell them, hey, I'm going to go watch Taylor get baptized. Well, my cousin knew I was getting baptized, and she's a narc, and she told my parents that I was thinking about it. So as I'm walking out the door, I tell my dad, I'm going to go watch Taylor get baptized. And he goes, well, what about you? And I go, ooh. They heard. They found out. And I go, you know what?
My board shorts in my back pocket?
Yeah, I'm like wearing shorts and flip-flops. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm like, well, I might. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen, And they're like, sit down, let's talk.
Oh, shoot.
And this was one of the most dramatic moments in my life. Because, and I don't.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. We got to go to break.
Okay.
We got to go to break. We only got a minute left. Wow, this is amazing. And I can totally picture, because, I think every time I've been with you, even when we went to California, you had your flip-flops on and you got your board shorts, because you helped me baptize down there at the revival night. So you're all set up. You're walking out, ready to go.
Yes.
Where you going? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Look at your kit.
Sure.
All right, you guys, I have Hagen Miller in studio from Calvary Chapel, Salmon, Idaho. You can look him up on social and all that good stuff. But don't forget to go to YouTube. Type in Ryan Ries. See all the past radio shows. We got Bible teachings up there, because I'm teaching at my dad's church on Sunday mornings, going through the Gospel of John. I don't know, like 8 years of past radio shows. Go to the whosoevers.com. We tour the world. We bring the Great Commission to the public schools to let people know that God loves them. He died on the cross for their sins, and he has a plan for them. So if you want to book us, we would love to come out to your school, middle school, high school, colleges, universities, whatever, whenever, whoever. Contact us, and we will be back in 2 minutes right after the break. Peace.
More of The Ryan Ries Show coming up. Post your questions at Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, and or Facebook. Now, back to The Ryan Ries Show.
All right, we are back in studio. Man, that first half of that show was crazy. Amazing testimony of Hagen. Hagen from Calvary Chapel, Salmon, Idaho. Which is the senior pastor there now. And we're actually going to get into how you got into that.
For sure.
But we just talked on the first half about you getting converted from Mormonism to Christianity. And now where we're at right now at this moment in time is you're leaving your house.
Yeah.
You're going to get baptized. And you're walking out in your flip-flops and your board shorts. And your dad's like, hey, where are you going? And you're like, I'm going to go see my friend get baptized. The guy that got you into Christianity.
Yep.
And he's like, what about you?
Yeah.
Because your cousin probably knocked you out.
That's right.
So what happened at this point?
So I'm leaving the door. What about you? Hey, maybe sit down. Let's talk. So I sit down. Yeah. And my mom's getting ready for church. She comes out and I don't blame them because I just can't understand it. But it's like, what are you doing? And they're just trying to make sense of it. Like, this is a huge deal. It's one thing to doubt Mormonism. It's one thing to go to this other church. It's another thing to decide to get baptized. You know, this is a whole nother level for them to have to try to cope with. Cause it's like, it's almost like this is final. Like, he's really done with Mormonism now in their mind, Right. So my mom comes out and she, what are you doing? Crying. You're tearing apart our eternal family. Because in Mormonism, families are together forever, but I'm leaving Mormonism, so I'm like this is huge.
You're on a different level of heaven now.
It's like you're tearing this apart. Like, what are you thinking?
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and I just remember like that was one of the hardest things in my life to just like leave that house, and I'm just crying, and I'm so emotional. I'm crying because it's just so difficult. My parents just don't understand what Jesus is doing in my life. But I just remember driving down to the church service and getting baptized that day. But that was a huge moment in my life, and baptism is a huge deal to me because of that. Mine meant so much to me that I love doing baptisms now because it is a line in the sand for people. It's like, this is where it gets real because I'm literally stepping out in faith. I'm identifying with Jesus and I'm proclaiming that I'm his. Yeah. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah. It is a big moment as we were baptizing down at the revival night together. It is that moment when, you say, I'm done. I identify with Christ no matter what, when I'm working out my faith, but I'm fully in. And it is because you got baptized in the Mormon church. Yeah. And now you're like, I'm going over here. So, and then it's splitting the family, like you said, the eternal family, which is massive. So when you got baptized, at that point, you just, how old are you at this point?
So I'm 18.
You're 18, and you're going to college now from this point?
Yep, that week, yep. So it's like off to Pocatello, doing my own thing.
How'd that whole process go through college, leading you back to
Yeah,
Salmon?
So I had a real good time in college. I love the environment. I love the diversity. We tried doing some like ministry stuff. We started this little thing called Christians on Campus, me and my roommate, just trying to find little ways to serve Jesus. But into the second semester, it became clear to me that college was just a waste of time and money for me. Yeah. Like I wasn't sold on what I was pursuing. Yeah. So I decided I'm going to drop out.
You had a call to ministry. That was the problem.
Sure. Yeah, that is a problem. Yeah. Yeah, because like you can try anything else, sure, but it ain't going to cut it.
No.
Yeah. So I call up my pastor, Ty, and I go, I think I'm going to drop out of college and come back to Salmon. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll be back and I'll be around. And he goes, okay, cool. When you're here, I'll let you lead youth group for a month. And then I have these two other guys and you'll just kind of rotate through teaching youth group on Thursday nights. So I go, okay, cool, get back to Salmon, teach through like 1 Peter, and these other two guys that I'm supposed to rotate with flake off. So I just keep doing youth group for 2.5 years. So that's another one of those availability things.
Right.
It wasn't like, I'm going to take over youth group. It's just like I step in, and the next thing I know, I'm just there for the next 2.5 years. It's like, how'd that happen? It's like, I don't know. I just showed up.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's epic. And at that time, he's the main lead pastor, senior pastor of that.
Yep.
So you're now 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yep.
And what's the next thing from there?
Yeah, so I'm just serving the church as much as possible, working different jobs. I was a ranch hand. I worked as a mailman for like 9 months. That was boring. And then I worked in construction, like excavation work. And
How can it be boring being a mailman up in Salmon? I mean, I've seen those roads. You got dirt roads, you got snow. I mean, it's pretty adventurous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember driving up there. It's like we had the main road, but then all the other roads we were on were dirt.
Yeah,
and then there's a lot of snow there. In the winter. So it seems pretty exciting for someone like me. I'd be crashing and the whole thing. But so you did that.
So I get to be the youth guy. I'm teaching a regular study Thursday nights. I'm learning how to study. I'm getting disciplined as far as understanding all of that. One Sunday morning, I get a text at like 6 a.m. from Ty, and he goes, "I have kidney stones. I need you to fill in for me." So 20 years old, 2 hours notice. I need to teach 200 people the Bible. And then I just say huge. To that text, sure. Again, another open door. Sure, let me do this. So I mesh together some youth group messages, and I get up and I teach. And again, another just confirmation of people saying, you have a gifting. God uses you through the teaching of the word. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I'm now 21 years old. It's a Wednesday night. I'm late to church because I'm busy at work. I get to church. Ty finishes up the service. He takes me around back. We're talking for a while. It's actually literally 7 years ago, almost probably to this date. It was September sometime.
No way.
Yeah. And we're sitting on the steps outside of one of our buildings. And he goes, I've been given an opportunity to move down to Idaho Falls and pastor the church down there. And he goes, I was wondering if you would be interested in becoming the pastor here. And the best part of this whole story is he goes, let me know in the morning. Let me know by tomorrow.
What
and I'm like,
okay.
Psycho. And this is in not a weird sense, but just in a very real sense, this is what I've wanted.
Yeah.
Like this is making sense with what Jesus has been stirring in my heart.
Yeah, totally.
Because I was wanting to find a different career so that I could be more available to serve Jesus.
Right.
I know I want to be a pastor, or I know I have a calling to be a pastor. Right. But how can I be a pastor? Because I also love salmon, and Ty's the pastor in salmon. I don't know how this is going to work.
You can't have another church there.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but these are the things God's stirring. And now here's this open door. So I pray about it the next morning, and at my construction job, it's like 10:30 in the morning. I text Ty and I go, sure, let's do this thing. And within a week, he's gone, and I'm sitting behind his desk, and 200 people are looking to me as their new shepherd. Yeah.
Dude, you guys, listeners, this is crazy. If you know all that goes into just Bible studies alone.
Sure.
Okay? It takes me a long time to put studies together.
Yeah.
And teaching weekly, you're doing Sunday mornings, you're doing Wednesday night, and plus all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, I can't even imagine. And you're 21 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 17 minutes.
Okay.
So we got some time. Break it down. What did this look like? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did you feel like you were dying?
Yeah.
Or did you just thrive?
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, most of it was good. Praise God.
Perfect.
Like maybe a few people were like, this is silly and left, but literally maybe like 2 families. Like people were super loyal. They were super patient.
Yeah.
Like, let's just see what God does.
Yeah.
And I knew right out of the gate, there's going to be a lot of things I can't do well. The one thing I have to do well is feed the sheep.
Teach.
Because if I keep feeding them, they'll keep coming back.
Yes.
So that's the philosophy from day one. So I just took Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights studying very seriously, spent a whole lot of time because I'm teaching people that have been saved longer than I've been alive.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I have to know what I'm talking about. I have to really dig in.
Yeah.
And I just made a really good discipline of that, finding good resources, putting together studies. So even though there was a lot of areas I'm not good at and holes, everyone's chill and they're still coming back because they're getting fed.
If you're not teaching, you don't have a church.
That's right.
That's the bottom line.
Yep.
And that's a Calvary Chapel philosophy is feed the sheep.
Yep.
So yes, that's the first thing. So you're teaching, so you're doing that. And how is that going for you? You've been putting Bible studies together already for a couple of years.
Sure.
So you're already in that groove, but you're going hard now. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going deep because, like I said, this isn't the youth group anymore. This is the big leagues.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So how'd that process go? I mean, where people kept coming back, right?
Yep.
Kept coming back.
Yep. So it's like, okay. And you're just always kind of waiting for like the crap to hit the fan, it's like, when's the other shoe going to drop? Like somewhere there's going to be like the honeymoon phase will be over or whatever of this new guy. But like you get through like a year and like 2 years and it's like, okay. And at that time we have a sanctuary that holds like 111 chairs, little building. And we're doing 2 services and both of them are kind of full.
So wait, is that the church where the school is now?
Yep.
Okay, so you're in that. It's like a country church.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, well, we're getting full and we have some money and we need to expand somehow. So we look at all these doors and there's this building on Main Street that at first we thought was too small, but when we looked into it, it ended up to be perfect. So we bought this new building, remodel it, we move into it. So we go from a sanctuary that holds 111 to one that holds like 220. We move over there. It's like, this will be great. I can go to one service at 10 a.m. and we'll just have the whole church together. And we do that for like 3 weeks. And it's like, we can't do one service because we're just bursting at the seams. Wow. So it's like, we got to go back to 2.
Why? How did it feel? I mean, obviously I know God brought people, but there was just more room for more people to come.
More room. Yep. Just more space.
And by the way, when you say Main Street, he's right in the middle of Main, like and this is like the premier place to be in Salmon.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it just goes to 2 immediately after 3 weeks.
Yep. So it's like, hey, we got to go back to 2 services. We just have too many people coming and we can all be together in heaven, but for now we're going to have to be separated. Yes. So.
And then you turned that other that back church you remodeled it or did something.
Yeah.
And it turned into a school.
Yep.
So what grades is that?
It's K through 8th grade now.
K through 8th grade.
Yeah, we have like 35 students.
Okay, so if I ever move to Salmon, Idaho, we got a good.
There you go. Yes, Christian.
You never know. My wife might just be like, we're going up to Salmon.
Yeah.
I still got to take her up there with the kids. I still need to. I've been telling them to come up there to hang out. She'll like that. She likes that vibe. It's good to relaxing and just be up to that country vibe. So what are some things though that you personally experienced being a 21-year-old lead and senior pastor? I mean, did you struggle with doubt, insecurity, fear?
Sure.
Were any of these emotions, or were you just like, I got to do this, and I just got to get this done? What was all the? I know I'd be tripping out on all those elements.
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming for sure. But I'm pretty. I don't get worried about details. I'm a big picture guy. So it's like big picture. It's like, I just need to teach these people. I just need to love them.
Yep.
And all these details, I don't know how it's going to work, but it's like, it'll all work out.
Yeah.
And that attitude drives my staff crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are you going to do about this? It's like, I don't know. Let's just watch and see what happens. I do a lot of winging. I do a lot of shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
But it's worked so far for 7 years. So yeah.
Wow. That is.
But like, I'd never been to a board meeting until I'm leading one.
Yeah.
It's like, so that whole part of church is foreign to me.
Yeah.
The teaching thing I've done.
Yeah.
But the other side of church, it's like, I still don't know if I do them right. I've never been to any one except my own. So it's like, maybe I'm completely screwed up. I don't know.
But yes. But it's true though. Like, I mean, the way I look at it, I don't run a church.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it, there is obviously, it depends on the size of the church as well, and the different ministries and all the things that could be going on. But I feel like the main thing is the main thing, and that's feeding the sheep.
Yep.
And God will work out. God will raise up people to get the other stuff done.
Yeah.
And those giftings. I mean, remember there was, who was it? It was Moses. Was it Moses? Or they were like, why are you dealing with all this stuff?
Yep.
Like, let's get people a place to deal with this stuff. Like, you do what you do, and let's get these other people to run the operation.
Yeah.
You know, and even in the Acts, let's set the pastors, the leaders to set aside to fasting and praying to teach the word of God, and get the other guys to run all the others, the other business. But the main focus is feeding the sheep, because you don't feed the sheep, sheep will die.
Yeah.
Spiritually. Yep. You gotta deliver. And I was listening to this Bible study today, just on this note of delivering, is that I think it was Skip Heisig today on because I listen to K-Wave. I have the app, so it's like all these different Bible teachers. I love John Corson as well. Yeah, but always been a fan of him as well. I'm a Chuck guy. I like John Corson, and I like Skip Heisig. And there's a lot of guys, but those guys are the guys that I hear a lot on the radio. Yeah, when I'm listening to my app. So with that said, they were talking about delivering, and I forget who Skip quoted, like McGee or some older guy, but he was saying how he asked this guy a question about Bible teachers, and he says, what's wrong with the church? And he says that a lot of people don't teach the Bible. Yeah. And he says, well, why don't they teach the Bible? And the guy told Skip, because they're lazy. And I thought about me when I put Bible studies together, and you as well. It's like, you go and you hear people, and people don't teach the Bible. They just do like motivational stuff, and the church is weak because the pastor's not taking the time to actually study. Yeah. It takes a long time to put a Bible study together. Sure. At least for me, minimum 8 solid hours. Yeah. And I think guys do it a lot better and quicker. Probably takes a little bit longer for me, probably like 12 hours to put a Bible study together. But it takes time. Anyone could go copy and paste. There's websites where you can copy and paste and do stuff like that. Sure. And just put a quick Bible study together. But it's different when you're obviously going and looking at resources and reading different books, and you're doing stuff. But it's different when you're like hearing from God, right? When you look at the passage and you're cross-referencing other commentaries and different things to hear what different perspectives of people, but then God gives you insight on what he's telling you as well. Yeah. And when you mix all that together, your studies, right? Because studying is like going to school. You're studying a subject and you're putting a paper together. But you have to put the Holy Spirit into it. And as God speaks to you individually, then he gives you that message that I believe is like, it's anointed. Yeah. That's the difference. Is there's like, anyone could go, I mean, we've all heard people give a Bible study and you're like, dude, that was boring. Sure. Yeah. That was boring. Yeah. He taught the word of God, but it was boring. It just wasn't anointed. It wasn't Spirit filled. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like what can you, that's just my perspective of that. How do you explain that? Like a teaching versus something that people teach you like, that's anointed. How do you explain that? Yeah. I heard a quote that it should be a sin to make the Bible boring. Because it's not boring. It's not. Yeah, and just like learning to actually realize what's going on in these stories and this history. Yeah. Like it's intense stuff. Yeah. It's dramatic. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. I mean, there's so much drama in this book that we have. Yeah. So to take it and make it boring, it's like watch out for that pastor. Yeah. Because it doesn't need to be. Yeah. Put yourself in those shoes. Think about what Jesus is saying. Think about what it would be like to see him heal the guy's ear that Peter just chopped off. Like you put yourself in there, it can really bring it to life. Yeah, that's the way I feel. Yeah. Just like, how would you? I always look at like, how would it be with me and my friends? Because our friends, we all have, just like Jesus had the disciples. Sure. They all had their characters. Yeah. They were all characters, like their personalities and everything. And then I relate the disciples to me and my friends. Like if we were all in a scenario where we're on the boat in the stormy sea, or where we see Jesus heal the person with leprosy, or Jesus starts, throwing over the tables and the money changers are making a whip. And I mean, what I would be like, yo, Jesus, well, dude, we're going to get arrested. Like, what's going to happen? We're done. This is insane. Like, we're in the temple. We're in the temple, and he's just flipping tables and chasing everyone out has a rope. Yeah. Like, this is crazy. Like, think about or he's walking on water. This is, what the heck? Yeah. Like, and then he silenced the storm. What the heck? Yep. Like, you really think about that, and as you teach these moments, I mean, these pictures are just these Bible stories are just all pictures of these things happening, running into the demoniac.
Yeah.
I mean, you got, who is it? Jeremiah running around naked. The first streaker in the Bible. Well, I guess Adam was the first streaker.
There you go. Yeah. Yes.
But you know what I'm saying? He didn't know he had to wear clothes though, so it was Jeremiah. But yeah, it is. It's not boring. It's not boring. So if you guys are at a church and you're hearing boring messages, you need to switch it up. You got to find someone that's passionate.
Yeah.
And if they're passionate and they take time to read and study the Bible, like I was listening to Skip Isaac this morning, and gosh, that guy has so much research on historical stuff. If you ever listen to him, I mean, he really breaks down historical stuff of what Paul was talking about, like about a saying he was talking about because he was a tent maker, and about cutting a line. And I mean, I was just like, dude, this is very interesting stuff. Not only that you have the gospel, but just like the way they use their verbiage and stuff.
Yeah.
Date, place, and time. Really, really amazing. So with that said, okay, so now here you are. So you're a good Bible teacher, obviously, and you travel all over the world, and you teach at Bible schools.
Yeah, at CBIs.
CBIs,
Yep.
And
let's
plug CBI.
And the Republic of Georgia, and all over. Yep.
Republic of Georgia, Peru, and CBI is the Calvary Chapel Bible Institute.
Yep.
Which I think there's like 20 of them or more planted around. And now you have 2 services going on at your church up in Salmon.
Yep.
You have a Christian school that's happening up there as well. What other things? You go on mission trips?
Yeah, we went to Mexico this year with our youth group. We have a couple in our church that has a missions organization that does work in Kenya every year. So yeah, we're doing
Kenya,
stuff like that.
We're going to be going to Africa.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we should talk after this.
Cool.
But yeah, we have a plan, I think, to go to Kenya and I don't know, there's another spot over there. I can't think of the name, but yeah, we're planning to go over there with the whosoever's, invade the schools. They have the access to the schools in these 2 different countries. And then we're going to do a revival night to kind of top it off at the end of the week. So good things. Any last words for anyone that wants to get involved in ministry? What would you say to them? We got about 4 minutes
Keep
left.
showing up. Keep hanging around like people who are doing it, pastors like that. Make yourself available. And just little by little, these little opportunities start landing in your lap, and just be faithful to say yes and watch how God can use you. I'm so thankful that I was saved in a system like Calvary Chapel, because if it was any other denomination or non-denomination, I couldn't be doing this. I'm not a seminary guy. I don't like school. That we're in a system that's a moving of the Spirit. I'm grateful for that every day. Yeah. And I love, as a young Calvary Chapel pastor, I'm excited for the future of the movement. I know the OGs are getting old, and some people are like, well, what's going to happen when Ries or Joe Foch or Don McClure, these guys? It's like, I don't know what's going to happen with their churches or what they're doing with the leadership, but I know there's many people like me who have the heart of Calvary Chapel. I get the vision. I don't have to learn the vision. When I go to these conferences and they speak about what Calvary is, I'm not like trying to figure it out. It's just speaking to my soul.
Exactly.
You don't have to teach me how to do this.
Exactly.
It is who I am. And I believe that God has a calling on my life to not just teach his word, but to raise up specifically young men. And he's been so faithful in surrounding me with people that are hungry for Jesus. When we went down to California, I brought my buddy Dane with me. He's just a young 15-year-old who's getting on fire for Jesus. There's just all these people that God's bringing me. And I'm just looking, okay, Jesus, how can I give them opportunity like that was given to me so that their gifts can be developed and they can hopefully get addicted to serving you? Because once you do that, you'll settle for nothing less.
I resonate with everything you're saying. If I'm not a seminary guy, I hate school. I dropped out of school. I got kicked out and then dropped out. Never my thing. But then God did something in my life. And because it's Spirit-filled, he gives me the words. He teaches me. I study. And now he's opened the door to teach all over the world and do evangelism all over the world. And get involved in ministry, you guys. It's not, maybe you do have a call to be a pastor or teacher, right? But maybe you have a call to just go, but maybe you have a call to go serve the poor. Maybe you have a call to be an evangelist. Maybe you have a call to do ministry. And there's many different ways in ministry. So don't pigeonhole yourself, say, well, I'm not called to be a pastor.
Sure.
That's not the only call.
Yep.
That's not the only call. There's so many different operations to serve in different organizations.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be in a Christian organization. You are a disciple. You are serving Jesus wherever you're at. Maybe God's called you to be an attorney, and do good in the world.
Yeah.
Which we need that.
For sure.
Or a government official.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I was just thinking about a pilot. There's pilots that I know that are working for like I forget the name of the ministry, but they take supplies into like these third world countries, and like with doctors, and they're a pilot, and that's how they serve.
Yep.
They love flying, and they're flying supplies in. So many don't pigeonhole yourself
Absolutely.
to anything. Just go to God, let the Spirit lead you, but be available and
Amen.
just say yes, and you will see what will happen. All right, you guys. So that's the end of the show. That's Hagen Miller, Calvary Chapel, Salmon, Idaho, and go to thewhosoevers.com. Check us out. We are a movement of whosoevers and leading the way to reflect Christ in culture. We do evangelism all over the world. We preach, we teach, and hit the public school system. And then obviously you could go to ryan-reese.com, ryan-reese.com, and you can find all of our past shows, our YouTube channel. I teach the Bible. I have evangelistic stuff, preaching and teaching. It's all there for you guys. We will not stop. We will continue. We need to reach as many people for Christ as possible. Thank you for being on the show.
For sure.
And man, it's about raising the next generation. I love you, man. Peace.
Love you too.
This has been The Ryan Ries Show. To connect and find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for The Ryan Ries Show.